Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a revolutionary step-by-step guide for writing your next book, but we're going to do it using developer tools. We'll walk through exactly how to set up this workflow from scratch. So if you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by the chaos of the writing and editing process, prepare to have your mind blown by how the software engineering world solves these exact problems. Let's get right into it.
So let's start with a massive pain point for basically all authors: tracking thousands of revisions from an editor without completely losing your sanity. When you write a book, you know you're not just writing one draft. You're writing, rewriting, accepting some edits, rejecting others, and multiplying all of that by hundreds of pages. And the traditional tools we use for this, well, they're frankly terrible at managing this level of complexity.
Think about the old way. We all know the absolute dread of looking at a folder filled with files named final, final_final, and actually_final version 3. It is a recipe for disaster. But the new way, using a system called Git, completely eliminates this chaos. It gives you a beautifully clean, version-controlled history of every single word you've ever written.
Here's our step-by-step roadmap for today. 1. Why write with GitHub? 2. Plain text and markup. 3. Setting up your workflow. 4. Drafting and committing. 5. Collaborating without the chaos. And 6. Building your final book.
Okay, Section 1. Why write with GitHub, the ultimate version control for authors? Let's explore why a platform famous for hosting open-source computer code is actually the absolute perfect place to write a manuscript. At its heart, Git is a distributed version control system, meaning it only saves the exact changes you tell it to exactly when you tell it to, rather than just arbitrarily auto-saving a chaotic mess in the background. Think of it like a highly specific video game save point. If you write a scene, decide you hate it 3 weeks later, and delete the whole thing, Git remembers it perfectly. You can always pull it back.
Author Joe Bullig perfectly summarizes the massive cognitive relief of using this kind of system. He talks about how you can look back on every change and just roll it back. When you use Git, you know you can literally never accidentally destroy your hard work. You can experiment freely. You can delete entire chapters without that paralyzing fear of what if I need this later, because Git is always watching and saving exactly what you ask it to.
Moving on to Section 2. Plain text and markup. Keeping your writing clean and simple.
To use this step-by-step system properly, we have to talk about how traditional word processors bring a ton of hidden, messy baggage to your files. Step 1 in your new workflow is ditching programs like Microsoft Word or Scrivener. See, when you save a Word file, it adds so much hidden junk code just to remember your fonts and margins. That junk code makes it almost impossible for Git to easily read what actual text has changed. Instead, you want to rely on beautiful, lightweight, plain text formats. Plain text, Markdown, or ASCII-Doc. They allow you to string words together cleanly, so you're focusing solely on the content of your draft, not the formatting.
All right, Section 3. Setting up your workflow. 2 paths to the same destination.
The great news here is that you can choose an adventure that perfectly matches your own technical comfort level. You have 2 distinct paths. You can either use local terminal commands on your computer for ultimate control, which is the route author Joe Bullig takes. Or if the command line sounds completely terrifying to you, you can use a tool like the Teachbooks template to write entirely within your web browser on GitHub's interface. No local software installation required at all.
But if you do choose the local hacker route, these 3 simple terminal commands are literally all it takes to transform a regular desktop folder into a trackable Git repository. You navigate to your folder using CD, you type git init to tell Git to start watching the folder, and then you use git remote add origin to connect that local folder up to GitHub's cloud servers. And just like that, your computer is fully ready to track every keystroke you lock in.
Section 4. Drafting and committing. Tactics for high-velocity writing.
With our folders initialized, we enter the actual drafting phase. This is where you get words onto the page and lock them permanently into history. But before you just start typing endlessly, author Matthew McCullough recommends this really aggressive outlining strategy to prevent endless rewrites. First, write high-level bullets. Then, write just 5% of the book based on pure passion just to test the waters. Next, drill down into level 2 bullets. Once that is done, you lock the outline entirely. You do not let the prose change the plan. From there, you just focus on writing a rough, messy first draft with incredibly high velocity.
5,200. That massive number represents the amount of words McCullough actually cranked out in a single day. How? By combining his strictly locked outline with a Dragon Dictate wireless boom mic. By dictating his text into plain files, he completely bypassed the keyboard to just get the raw story out of his head and straight into the system. Pretty wild, right?
So once you've written the solid chunk of text, whether typing or dictating, you execute what's called a commit. A commit basically attaches a permanent label to that specific milestone in your story. You get to add a helpful little message to it, like added the scene where the dog runs away, or maybe just hit 1,500 words for the day. This right here is why plain text is so vital. When you look back at this commit later, Git will show you exactly which lines of text were added in green and which were deleted in red.
So, your step-by-step loop becomes your daily writing habit, and it is incredibly powerful once you get the hang of it. First, Git pull to download any updates if you're working across multiple devices. Second, Git add dot to stage your new writing for saving. Third, Git commit with your specific message to save it locally. And finally, Git push to upload those changes safely up to the GitHub cloud. Eventually, this becomes as natural as hitting Control-S, but it is infinitely more powerful.
That brings us to Section 5, collaborating without the chaos, managing editor revisions seamlessly. This is the part where you actually have to share your baby with an editor, which, let's be honest, is historically the most stressful part of writing a book. To prevent the absolute nightmare of lost edits or garbled feedback, Git uses something called branches. A branch allows your editor to essentially play in a separate sandbox that exists entirely parallel to your main book. They can delete paragraphs, rewrite sentences, leave notes, and none of it touches your precious master file until you explicitly say so. Here is exactly how that relationship works in practice. You have your master branch, that's the pristine text. Your editor works on their practice branch. When they finish a chapter, you review their branch. Because you're using plain text, the GitHub interface clearly highlights every single addition and deletion. You get to review every single change, decide what to keep, and then seamlessly merge their good edits right into your pristine master branch. It makes the editing process incredibly logical, stress-free, and visually clear. Okay, one massive warning here, especially for solo writers who hop between multiple computers. This is the golden rule. Don't cross streams. You must always finish your work, commit it, and push it up to GitHub on your desktop before you open your laptop to pull those changes down. If you start making different edits on two different computers at the exact same time, Git gets confused and creates a dreaded conflict that you then have to manually untangle, and nobody wants to deal with that.
Finally, Section 6, building your final book, from text files to a published product.
The manuscript is written, the editor's branches have been merged, so let's look at how this step-by-step system actually builds the readable, polished version of your final book. If you decided to use the TeachBook's fully online interface we mentioned earlier, they actually have a deploy book workflow that automatically generates a summary table to track your progress. Every time you update your text, it instantly shows you if your book successfully compiled to the web, providing a live link to the released version, or alerting you immediately if a specific branch failed to build. By relying on GitHub's powerful automated backend, systems like TeachBooks are doing all the heavy lifting for you. They literally take your simple, plain markdown text files and automatically compile them into a beautiful, multilingual, fully interactive web page. You get the raw simplicity of writing in plain text, combined with the output of a professionally engineered digital book. It's a total game changer.
So, what does this all mean for you? The ultimate takeaway here is that adopting this developer mindset will completely free you from the chaos of messy file management and lost edits. It gives you ultimate control and, more importantly, peace of mind over your creative process, which really leaves you with just one final question to answer. Will your next masterpiece be trapped in a chaotic, confusing word processor or engineered beautifully on GitHub? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and happy writing.